Elbaf will be a Davy-back fight between the Straw Hat Pirates, Red Hair Pirates, and the Cross Guild. This may or may not sound like a bold take to you because there are many other similar theories out there. But let me ask you this, when do you think Oda wrote Luffy reuniting with Shanks? Or Zoro vs Mihawk? Or the Elbaf arc as a whole? Of course these things haven't happened in the story yet, but don't you think that Oda knew how these things were going to conclude from the start? The same way that Oda knew what the One Piece is even before he drew chapter 1. Let's really look at the main players in this Davy-back fight. There's Luffy, Zoro, Shanks, Mihawk, and Buggy. Besides Shanks and Zoro, all 5 of these characters have a unique dynamic with each other and were introduced within the first 50 chapters. Even the location of Elbaf, although it was introduced later in the Grand Line, can be reasonably assumed to be the first arc that Oda came up with. Not just because it may feature all of these core characters, but because Oda himself stated that One Piece was inspired by a Viking cartoon he watched as a child, which fits Elbaf perfectly. Before the Wano arc started, if he told the fanbase that not only Kaido will be defeated, but he will be defeated by Luffy alone, and that Big Mom will show up and be defeated as well, you'd be laughed out of the room and told that you were overestimating what can happen in a single arc. I think when it's all said and done, compared to the Elbaf arc, the Wano arc will seem like filler. The same way that Oda never planned out the warlords from the start, yet they padded out the entire story to make it as long as it is. It seems like the Yonko that we have now are the original set of emperors, and that Big Mom, Kaido, and even Whitebeard were just the placeholders. We see that Oda planned out these new emperors since volume 25, 200 chapters before the Yonko were introduced as a concept, and back when Big Mom and Kaido still look like this. Even Buggy having the current strongest swordsman, Mihawk, and his crew, seemed to be planned from the start. As we see in the concept art that Oda planned to have the future strongest swordsman, Zoro, to be in his crew initially. This is an abandoned story beat, but in Oda fashion, will be a form of foreshadowing this important duo of Buggy and Mihawk, who actually complement each other extremely well narratively. Mihawk is an extremely powerful and honorable opponent, but he doesn't really have any strong motivations tethering him to the story. Buggy, on the other hand, is very ambitious, but is the funniest and most entertaining when he succeeds despite his weakness. You take these two characters and add the cunning and scheming crocodile as the foundation, and you have an interesting and dynamic faction in the story. And when you take this faction and involve them in a conflict between 2 other factions, which all have interesting histories and dynamics with each other, while placing them in a setting that will bring out the competition, that will lead to a lighthearted yet high stakes, a large yet intimate, a fun yet still meaningful of a story arc.